Hello and welcome to North 100, your Canadian Highlander podcast. I'm Serge. Joining me as always, we have Jeremy White, Alex Steacy, Liam Coughlan. This episode is brought to you by you over at patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. Thank you so much for all your support. You let us make this and everything else we do, and we couldn't do it without you, so thank you. We're going to start how we always start with the best card you're not playing. Up today is Jer. What's your secret tech?
The All-Star from my Highlander Monday winning list, the Scarab God.
Hold on, you're the current champion right now?
Current champ, yeah.
Oh man.
In a long top 4 related tournament. Jer played 6 rounds of Magic on Monday.
Yeah, 6-0. It was a slog.
So this fella's spilled over from Standard into Highlander.
Yeah, the best card in Standard, also the best card you're not playing in Highlander. It's 3 blue and a black for a legendary creature type God.
Okay.
It's a 5/5. It says, at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses X life and you scry X, where X is the number of zombies you control.
Okay.
That ability is pretty sweet. You can respond to it with the ability on the stack to start getting triggers.
More zombies?
Right away. You respond with its next ability, 2 blue-black, exile target creature card from any graveyard, and create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie.
Okay.
And it says, when the Scarab God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step.
It seems hard to get rid of.
Yeah, it's a super resilient threat that blocks super well, because if they have a trick, you get it back next turn. If they don't have a trick, it's probably the biggest thing on the board, so their thing died. You get to attack super well, and if you untap with it, you just start getting 4/4 versions of the best creatures that have died this game.
When I first saw this card, I was just like, does it do enough as a 5-drop? Because it doesn't do anything when it lands. That was like my first evaluation of all the gods when I saw them. And this thing is just like, oops, it's nuts all of a sudden?
Yeah,
This
card's...
seems really attrition-y.
So it is super attrition-y, and I think it's insane when you're playing it ahead of curve. So I played it in a bug min-range deck, which plays a bunch of removal spells, and it plays mana dorks to accelerate your curve.
So this is like your turn 4 play.
Yeah, ideally I'm casting it on turn 4, or actually about half the time I had it in play, I Eldritch Evolutioned into it. So that's a 1 green sorcery.
Eldritch Evolution? Yeah.
That lets you sacrifice a creature you have in play to search your library for a creature with X+2 on that creature's mana cost and put it into play.
So it's a one-time
or
super
less.
pod activation.
Exactly, and you exile Eldritch Evolution.
This card.
So you can sacrifice a 3-drop to go get the Scarab God, and one of the reasons the Scarab God is a super good Eldritch Evolution target is because then on your next turn, if they aren't able to remove the Scarab God, you're allowed to get... So
you get the 3-drop back!
So one game I cast a Mana Dork on turn 1. Turn 2, I cast Courser of Krufix. Then I attacked with Courser of Krufix, Eldritch Evolution into the Scarab God, and then the next turn I was able to respond to the trigger on my upkeep and get my Courser back as a 4/4.
That's
as a token.
really close.
That means that there were 2 Courser of Krufix tokens involved in Monday Night Highlander, because I too at one point had a Courser of Krufix.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Did you Fractured Identity?
Gross.
Sweet.
all right, Scorpion God apparently nuts.
It's great.
Scarab
What did I
God.
say? Scorpion God?
Scorpion.
that's
That
the
one
red.
Not as
untested,
good.
less good.
Less
I
nuts.
want to test. I'm getting way off topic. Yes.
But yeah, this is the best card you're not playing in Highlander.
Well,
Try
thank
to
you.
trade one off one of those standard players.
I don't think they're going to give them up.
No, probably not.
Just wait 3 months and you.
I was lucky. I had one like in a box.
Yeah.
And I just like was going through. I'm like, oh, this card's being played now. I guess I should get it out of my like draft
Yeah,
trash
it was in the
box.
ship box.
But what if I played it in Highlander and won?
Yeah.
Oh, congrats
All right.
to our reigning champ. All right, let's introduce today's theme. So we recently, and by we I mean the Canadian Highlander Council, have updated the points list. So we want to first talk about what the points list is, and then we want to talk about the changes to the points list, the increases, the decreases, what that means to the metagame, and if we like those changes. So first off, with a recap of the points list, we've talked about it before, but it's worth going over again. Jer, really quickly, what is the points list and why is it important?
So the points list is in place to govern the format and to stop everyone just playing all the most busted cards all in the same deck, which would really homogenize the format and make barrier to entry super high. So it's a way to govern the format without banning any cards. So people are still allowed to play all the really powerful cards, just in moderation.
Right on. You can find more information on the points list in the Facebook group or the website. We'll have links to that down below. But we're going to go really quickly through the changes and then talk about a card individually.
I don't want to derail you too much, but
Sure.
have you addressed previously why points and not just a ban list?
Yeah. We have, but we can talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's basically when you use a ban list, and there are other actually Highlander formats even that do.
Yep.
It has this tendency of being even more polarizing because it's a binary state. A card is either legal or it's not, and what that means is that the metagame kind of devolves down to there is a set pool of cards, and you can figure out the configurations of those cards that are the best. When you have a points list, comparatively, there's a lot more combinations of powerful cards, and when one particular combination of those powerful cards becomes too good, it's a lot less heavy-handed to be able to say, let's make this 1 point more and sort of slightly influence the way those decks have to be constructed, as opposed to that binary state of this deck is legal or it's not.
Also, as Jared pointed out earlier, it allows players to play every card they want to.
Yeah.
It has a little bit of common ground with the restricted list in Vintage, where it's like, you can play these cards, just only one.
Yeah.
And because you can only play one anyways, it's just like it's like you have access to Power 9, all sorts of like insane stuff, but you can't have it all. You have to choose which slices of cake you put in your deck.
Exactly.
So let's go over the changes really quick. So for those of you who are familiar with the list, this will be quick, and then don't worry, we'll go over each card individually. So decreases. Doomsday is going from 2 to 1. Hermit Druid is going from 3 to 2. Limp-Dul Vault is going from 1 to 0. Oath of Druids is going from 1 to 0. Sol Ring is going from 4 to 3. Time Walk is going from 6 to 5. Time Vault is going from 7 to 6. Tinker is going from 5 to 4. And there's only a single card in the meta right now that saw an increase in points, and that's Eldritch Evolution, because as we just saw, that card is nuts.
Yeah, it's obviously busted.
It's worth noting, too, that the Eldritch Evolution change is sort of paired with the Time Walk change.
Yeah.
Really? How are those two related?
We'll get to it when we
Okay.
talk about
Yeah.
them, but
I'm curious.
They got paired in the council meeting, and so we presented them as a paired change.
So overall, what we see is a massive decrease in the points to combo decks. So this is are we going to be seeing a new season of combo in the meta?
It's hashtag combo winter. For
Yeah.
those of you who want to get in on this.
Yeah,
on
maybe.
Twitter.
It's going to be really interesting. So let's go over the cards first. First up, we have Doomsday. So Doomsday is a sorcery for, I believe, black.
Black.
Yeah. It has an additional cost of lose half your life, rounded up. And the text says, search your library. The card I was reading right there.
I don't think it's an additional cost. I think you pay
Oh,
half
it's
your
upon
life
resolution?
upon
Okay,
resolution.
that's
Yeah.
right.
That's
That's a very
different.
important difference, right? Pay half your life rounded up upon resolution.
Yeah.
So you can't get goozled by it.
Well,
Graham keeps changing the card I'm trying to read off of. It has
Trying to
very
set it
different
back.
text.
I wanted the black border because it looks nicer, but then I didn't realize the card text was so different. So
Nothing worse than
I don't know.
dirty something.
Here. Is this any better? Is
no,
that-
No, I can't
why?
even read that.
Why would you do this to us?
So for those of you
What
reading
card
the
is that?
audio version,
is
yeah,
the
Graham is
invocation.
changing the text on me. So search your library and graveyard for 5 cards and exile the rest. Put the chosen cards on top of your library in any order. You lose half your life, rounded up.
Serge, I'm impressed you memorized the text.
That's illegible, I know. I've never actually played Doomsday. Has anybody here played this deck?
Yeah, Jared and I both have.
So tell us a little bit about this deck.
It's bad.
Well,
It was bad at 2 at least. Basically, the idea is that you're this very all-in combo deck that's looking to assemble Doomsday, and then from there, Doomsday is very powerful because it's a penta tutor, right? You find 5 cards, and you can always find a fairly effective way of winning the game. It's a strong combo card. It does usually read win the game ish.
Yeah.
The problem is that ish.
Win the game asterisk.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully you don't pay half your life and end up in lightning bolt range,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So this is one of those cards that is a build around. This isn't something that you splash into your combo deck to get with. Is that right? Like, are you Doomsday? Are you Doomsday Storm or?
it's kind of interesting because
Yeah, that's actually the one concern.
one of the reasons it's been pointed before is because one of the most prolific Storm players, Brett Frankson,
Yeah.
played it in a traditional Storm deck, and it was very effective. Just the cards he already had in his deck, he could basically add Doomsday, and it was another very effective way for him to win the game.
So it could either tendrils
very
you
early.
or Doomsday you.
Yeah, and he'd usually end up tendrilsing after Doomsday. Anyways, he could set up a tendrils Doomsday pile.
Really?
Yeah, with Time Twister, if you have 2 cards in your hand, you can Time Twister with after a Doomsday stack, because then there's 7 cards total, and you can get access to the whole
I
stack
always
right
thought
away.
that Doomsday would try to win with Lab Maniac.
That's one way.
That's how typically the traditional like more all-in Doomsday combo decks win. But if you're playing it in Storm, you don't always play Lab Man version.
So you guys excited about Doomsday going down from 2 to 1? And sorry, I should have introduced this earlier. Full disclosure, we have 2 current members of the Highlander Council. So Liam and Jer actually had a lot of input in affecting these points changes. So their insight as to why this is good and bad is going to be pretty valuable and everything here.
Yeah, for me, ultimately, I think this card is fine to go down from 2 to 1. There has not been a Doomsday list that has felt oppressive. There have been people who've tried to play Doomsday. I've tried to play Doomsday. People have 3-1'd with the deck, but it's never really felt that good. One of the big issues is that there's just a lot of ways to interact with this combo, and it's especially like if you're going off with short mana or if you're going off against a big fast clock.
Yeah.
There are a lot of ways that Doomsday gets interacted with that you don't even think of. I had an opponent cast Doomsday, but he had to get a pass the turn stack, because basically Doomsday is when you resolve it, you either have a way to draw into your stack of 5 cards so you can kill that turn, or sometimes you just have to pass the turn and naturally
hopefully
draw.
not die and draw the first card.
I think I blew Brett Frankson out when he was on Doomsday one time, because he had Lab Maniac in play and cycled Edge of Autumn, and I was tapped out, and I cast Pyrokinesis.
Yeah, and so there's just a bunch of ways that you can die. So for instance, I was playing against someone who had to get a pass the turn stack. He passed the turn to me, and I played Jace the Mind Sculptor, and I fate sealed his gush, which was gonna draw him to the rest of his stack to the bottom, and then he died.
I've heard of people getting Thought Scoured.
Yep.
Yeah, Thought Scour,
Getting even
recalled,
Portent, Recall.
Dealing with recall in game 2
Like
of that
recall
match.
target you. No!
So from my perspective, that's why it was okay for Doomsday to go to 1. Was that there's a lot of ways to interact with it. I didn't think it was
Because it's
impressive.
very powerful but fragile.
Yes.
ultimately.
The reason I had some trepidation, and I did ultimately vote for it to go down to 1, is the concern that we've always had with Doomsday, and the reason it stayed so high, is if you lower Doomsday, does it just become a Storm card? At 2, it definitely doesn't. At 1, we don't know. And so we've lowered it, and if it does turn out to make Storm have this additional win condition, maybe it's going to be a source of concern. Currently, Storm plays both Auriok Salvagers and the sort of traditional Lotus Storm combo.
Okay.
So this would be a third kind of win condition, but that deck is already full of I win the game cards, and actually Doomsday is easier to interact with than some of those other win conditions.
That's true.
Well,
Jared,
we'll see.
did you voted against this one, right?
I did. I voted against it largely for that reason. I was around and used to play Storm back when you could just fit Doomsday into it, and I remember how powerful a tool it was for that deck, and so I was a little more cautious than some of the rest of the council members and wanted to keep it at 2 for a little while longer. But
There was a long time.
it was definitely a close vote, and it's possible that it will be fine at 1.
There was an interesting moment in Highlander when Storm wasn't really in the meta. And there were a lot more like, we didn't really used to think Black Lotus was super nuts, and it wasn't that heavily pointed. And was it Brett Frankson who just showed up one day and just started destroying everybody with Storm?
That deck
Yep.
was a terror for a
Because
long
you could
time.
play Demonic Tutor, Mystical Tutor, Black Lotus, and Ancestral, all in the same deck.
And he played a Mox.
Yeah, his list is like 29 points now or something.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
but you see this correction when something comes in and massively shakes up the metagame. You correct, and sometimes over time, when you see that deck isn't winning anymore, you do maybe we overcorrect, and maybe we can nudge back and find if it has a healthy place in the meta again. You guys ready to move on to the next card?
Yeah.
So next up we have Hermit Druid. Hermit Druid is one of the few pointed creatures in the format. It's 1 and a green for a 1/1. It is a human druid, not a hermit druid, unfortunately. Pay green and tap. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a basic land card. Put that card into your hand, and all of the cards revealed this way into your graveyard.
Hey, Serge.
Yeah.
What if you don't play any basic land cards in your deck?
I was going to say, you're probably wondering why a simple card like this is so heavily pointed.
Well, Lay of the Land's busted.
So you play a deck that has no basic lands. So you put your entire deck into your graveyard. And often you're playing effects like Narcomoeba, or these very cheap unearthed creatures that get back into it, and then you have Unburial Rites, which is a format.
Dread Return.
Dread Return.
Pardon me. You have Dread Return, which is a 4-mana sorcery spell that you can also flash back by sacrificing 3 creatures, and you bring back something that wins the game. Either, again, Laboratory Maniac, or there's
With
the...
Azami, Lady of Scrolls.
Yeah.
So you bring back Angel of Jubilation.
Angel of
There's
Glorious Rise.
a
Glorious
lot of
Rise.
different ways. There's again,
There-
like once
there's-
your whole deck is in your bin, there are a couple of different combos you can iterate to do
There's
stuff.
2 main ones, either the Mimeoplasm or Angel of Glorious Rise.
Yeah.
You could also go way more OG and get Sutured Ghoul with Dragon Breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just get
So
him.
Dragon,
Just get him.
Dragon Breath is an enchantment that basically gives a creature haste.
We talked about so many
You cast
cards.
it
We just
for-
like rapid
Yeah, I
fire
know.
through
Well,
a million
I'm kind of
cards
hoping
there.
that people are going to understand many of those interactions, but I don't think they're going to get this
The
one.
Dragonfire one, yeah, the
Yeah.
Dragon Breath is pretty unique.
One we should probably bring up that we've said numerous times is Laboratory Maniac.
Right. Yeah.
That-
let's talk
that
about
one's-
Well, let's finish talking about Dragon
Sure,
Breath.
sure,
So
sure.
Dragon Breath, if it's in your yard and you play it and a 6-drop comes into play, it gets attached to that creature. Sutured Ghoul, importantly, costs 6.
7,
even
I
more.
think.
Yeah, and so Sutured Ghoul just exiles all your creatures in the bin, gets gigantic, picks up the dragon,
And then
Dragon
just tramples
Breath.
straight
and,
on
just,
through.
and just attacks for lethal.
Assuming they don't have removal.
Yes. Laboratory Maniac is a 2 and a blue 2/2 creature that says if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game. And you would,
You win the game instead.
instead of losing.
Yeah. So this card's obviously insane. It just breaks the rules of
you
Magic.
arrange to have this in play, wipe out your library, and then try to draw a card off of some free cantrip spell, and then you win.
Well, that's why Doomsday wins with it as well.
Yeah.
You exile your entire library. So you see a little bit of similarity in a lot of the decks that were being pointed against previously. Are these sort of degenerate combos that you set up a situation where you can instantly win on the spot, and so there was a move to move away from these. But tell me about Hermit Druid. Are you guys? I used to kind of hate this deck. This deck used to be very, very powerful and win out of nowhere. I remember Hermit Druid and Flash Hulk as being 2 of the most oppressive sort of early combos that we kind of shut down.
I don't think I've ever played against this deck, so I don't know that I have too much to say about it, because it seems like, I mean, it's a 2-mana 1/1,
This-
which doesn't seem like it would be very hard to deal with.
I mean, it
but
is. That's the point.
That's-
It's worth noting this card was 4 points 3 months ago. This card went down from 4 to 3. Jared played it once at 3. It was still bad, and now it's down to 2. And this was unanimous, I think, right? This
It was
This was a
unanimous.
5-0 down.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I'm probably the person most well known for trying to make Hermit Druid work, and I've tried. My recent efforts have been very, very fruitless. Trying to in the recent metas, trying to get a 1/1 creature to stick around is
Really challenging.
With-
There's also
with
all
no
these
protection.
blood moons running around, and you don't have basic lands in your deck.
exactly. It's been a really hostile.
Yeah, I guess 3 of the top decks right now are like Blue Moon, Jeskai Tempo, and Goblins, all of which can easily, like, you're almost guaranteed to encounter one of those decks.
Yeah, more
on any
mono red
given
than
night.
goblins.
I was gonna say
Which is actually worse. They have even more removal.
Goblins is actually
It's a good matchup, I think.
close.
Yeah.
Close. I'd say it's probably 50-50 with Hermit Druid. I've had some really good games with Mac when I was playing Hermit Druid and he was playing Goblins.
Yeah.
But Mono Red is like
Horrendous.
nigh unwinnable.
They
like,
often
how
just
many
draw a
lightning-
hand. Yeah, they
How many
just-
layers of lightning bolt are you?
Well, and they're
on,
even
dude?
playing shocks. Like, this creature has 1 toughness.
Yeah.
It's never living.
So, like, oftentimes you're not actually planning to cast Hermit Druid. You're planning to get it back some way from the graveyard with haste.
After it's
to kill
died 2
people.
or 3 times.
Yeah, exactly. And like I walked by once, Jared was playing this deck like a month or 2 ago, and he's playing against blue-white control, and I walked over and I'm like looking at the game and it's like, oh, this game's going pretty long. That's like probably not great for Jared. I look at his exile pile and there's just this Hermit Druid in exile and a Swords to Plowshares in the graveyard.
no.
Right? Like it's just like if it gets exiled, you can win, but it gets really
I
difficult.
actually won that game.
Did you?
Yeah, I
pretty
won
fun.
with Angel of Glorious Rise beatdown.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to get you with this 4/4. So
It's a 5/7.
So unlike Doomsday, which, what is it?
Yeah,
It's a 7-mana 5/7.
I thought it was a 7-mana 4/4. All right, let's talk about Angel of Glorious
Might be a
Rise really
4/7,
quickly.
but it has 7 toughness.
4/6.
All right.
Okay, we're close-ish.
Sure.
So Angel of Glory's Rise is a 7-mana 4/6 angel. We finally figured out what its power and toughness is. It has flying. When it enters the battlefield, exile all zombies, then return all human cards from your graveyard to the battlefield.
This is
So-
the Scarab God counter.
Holy moly!
Oh!
Get 'em.
Oh,
Wow, all of a sudden Hermit Druid comes in and just wrecks the
Yeah.
Scarab God meta.
The typical way this one wins is it brings back Laboratory Maniac, which is a human, and Azami Lady of Scrolls, which is also a human. And Azami Lady of Scrolls has printed on her, tap an untapped wizard you control, draw a card. She's a wizard. Lab Maniac is a wizard.
There's
So-
also a bunch more wizards.
Oh, yeah,
There's a bunch more
yeah.
wizards that come with this as incidental. So
There was a standard deck around Angel of Glory's Rise as well that was sort of an aristocrats list. It did the same sort of thing. So
Yeah.
that card's been around in competitive play for quite some time.
You dump your whole library, you get all this stuff in play, try to draw a card with Lab Maniac in play, and you win.
yeah.
Yeah. But overall, ultimately, the reason this card went down and the reason it's gone down twice is it's really flimsy. It's really hard to get going. There's a lot of disruption in the format right now, and the format's a lot faster. And because this card is so all in on one card, it's challenging to be that interactive in the deck. You do have to be pretty devoted to finding it.
Yeah, this is a build around. This is an archetype defining card. There isn't any redundancy for it. If you are playing Hermit Druid, you are playing the Hermit Druid deck.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we've tried to do Value Druid, not as good.
Maybe it's a time to try it again.
Oh my goodness.
It's only 2 points now.
All right, moving on. Next up, we have Limp-Dul's Vault. It is a 2-mana instant, and that is some old text, so I'm going to do my best to see. You want to read the errata?
Should be a newer version.
No, there is. I just wanted to show you this terribly low contrast art from the Alliances version. the
Hey, I have this card.
the
Sorry,
Oracle
I have
text
it.
is actually
Oracle, right.
The Oracle text is actually almost identical to this. It just doesn't have that last
Yeah.
clause of effects that
Oh,
prevent
okay.
a redirect loss of life.
Perfect.
But if you want to read it yourself, here's the version from Commander.
All right, instant for a blue and a black. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. As many times as you choose, you may pay 1 life. Put those cards on the bottom of your library in any order. Then look at the top 5 cards on your library. Then shuffle your library and put the last cards you looked at this way on top in any order. So what this does, it's kind of wordy, is it lets you look at 5, set that aside, look at 5, set that aside, and basically, like, in chunks of 5, scry and start to, like, reorder your library until you finally find a card.
But then you have to shuffle at the end.
The rest, yeah.
So you don't get to
control
stack
the
your
library.
library.
You basically stack the top 5 cards of your library at the cost of 1 life per iteration of 5.
Yeah, it lets you dig. It's not a reliable tutor in that give me the card I want, because there is the fact that you might just die. You can only pay life so many times until it shows up.
It also doesn't put the card in your hand. It puts it on top of your deck.
Yeah, it's sort of akin to a really clunky, more expensive in both mana and life vampiric tutor.
What sort of decks was this scene playing before?
Any combo deck with blue and black.
But that was the problem. It wasn't, right? Like, that's why it went down.
Not at one point.
I saw this in Esper Academy combo. And so in a deck that's playing a lot of different combos, so it was playing like Helm of Obedience combo, Painter Servant Grindstone, as well as like Thopter Foundry. And so
Mana
what happened?
Severance Charbelcher.
Yeah, no, exactly.
That's spicy.
But in that case, as soon as you have one combo piece in your hand, you can use this to start digging for the other. And there's enough, not redundancy, because the combos don't necessarily play well with each other, but there's enough variety in what happens that the ability to quickly dig through and find that other piece when this wasn't pointed made those decks a little bit too consistent. So I think that was the justification for pointing it, but it's been removed.
Yeah, so the main reason it's been removed is because of the life loss attached and the fact that when it was added to the points list, our format was maybe at least half a turn, maybe a full turn slower than it is now. Like our
slower,
format,
yeah.
our format's just sped up quite a bit. Like casting this against an aggro deck is a pretty huge liability
Yeah.
because you don't know how much life you're going to pay before you find a card that is worth
5
paying.
life.
Exactly.
5, 10 life.
So, like,
Yeah.
just the speed of the format is the reason that this card came off. I actually voted against this one coming off as well, just because, once again, I was around when
It
you
was
were able
oppressive.
to. It was free. It was free before. It hasn't always been on the list, and it was played a lot. But
It's worth noting, I voted for this one to come off, but the difference between 1 and 0 points is the biggest difference, and, it's not close.
Certainly.
Right, the difference between 1 and 2, okay, you might have to cut some cards to fit this in now, but the difference between 1 and 0 is this card gets played in any deck that can cast it versus it costs a point. And so this one's honestly really close. It was early in our meeting that we were talking about it, and it really hasn't been seeing basically any play, so we'll see what happens.
How often? Sorry, hi again. How often does the Secret Board of Shadowy Figures have meetings about the points list?
Yeah.
And what's the sort of how long do you let something play out before you start talking about a specific card again?
Yeah, we typically try to meet every month. It doesn't always happen, but we try to meet every month. Typically, like when a change happens, it's pretty obvious whether or not that change was, like, if the change is wrong, it's obvious right away. So for instance, like Merchant Scroll went from 1 to 0, and in about 6 months, it was very obvious that Merchant Scroll at 0 was not fair.
Yeah.
And it got changed back basically as soon as the new council got voted in. Everyone ran on the platform of Merchant Scroll should be 1 point. So typically it's pretty with the 0 to 1 cards. It tends to be pretty clear right away. And though I don't remember a time that we've changed a point like a month after we've changed it.
I can't either.
I don't think it's.
Winter Orb?
I wasn't around when that happened.
Winter Orb was 2 for a while.
The community hate pointed Winter Orb because it was unfun.
But that was back when, like, we were all in the room. There was no
there wasn't
council,
a
and everyone voted.
It was, yeah, it was
that
like,
was
that took a really long time.
True democracy.
We'd go through like 40 cards, and there'd just
It
be
was
exhaustion,
miserable.
and be like, should this be points? And everyone would be like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like Sensei's Divining Top was pointed because people hated it too.
Yeah.
The
And
worst one was Goblin Recruiter.
That's actually something
Goblin,
that's
yeah.
really important about why the council was brought in, is that like you're theoretically supposed to be objective and be able to remove personal emotion from it. But yeah, so anyway, so this point came off. This card came off the list, and to be honest, Graham, there's a world where it goes back on the list in 2 months,
Yeah.
right? Where it's just like, yeah, actually, this card's too good in combo.
Oops.
Feels too good, and we would make that change if it was obvious.
This card's kind of interesting because it sees virtually no play at 1, but we foresee that it'll see a lot of play at 0.
Yeah.
So we have been talking about this card for quite a while, like 6 months to a year, and eventually at one of the votes it got passed to go from 1 to 0 to sort of try it out and see how it is at 0.
There's a whole suite of very close to being pointed tutors that, like Limp-Dul's Vault is in that criterion. Another one is I had it and I lost it. The transmute counter an instant or sorcery spell.
Muddle the Mixture.
Muddle the Mixture. So Muddle the Mixture is blue counter target instant or sorcery, or you can transmute it for generic and blue, and transmute says discard this card, search your library for a card with the same CMC, reveal it, put it into your hand, and you can only transmute as a sorcery. And that lets you find a lot of very powerful cards on
Mostly
combo
Time
decks.
Walk.
Yeah, the Time Walk, Time Vault,
Demonic Tutor.
yeah, either part of the Thopter Sword combo. Like it found a lot of things because there's a lot of good cards at 2 in Magic, and so you play this weird game of particularly around combo of how consistent you want these decks to be, and then where do you actually put the points? Because we don't want to put the points on the payload. We'd rather put them because we want people to play those. We just want to make sure that they can't be as winnable.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It varies a little bit. The philosophy of whether you point tutors or payload is actually kind of different counselor to counselor,
Sure.
I think. But yeah, ultimately we try and balance it so that, like, for instance, Protean Hulk is the cheaper part of the Flash Hulk combo.
Sure.
Because we want people to be able to play Hulk in other more fair strategies.
Sandra Bullock.
Yeah. No, that's not fair. But
All right. So let's move on. Next up, we have Oath of Druids. This is the only enchantment on... Oh, no, there's Fastball, but I digress. Oath of Druids is a 2-mana enchantment for 1 and a green. It's wordy, so stay with me here. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player chooses target player who controls more creatures than they do and is their opponent. That's really clunky. The first player may reveal cards from the top of their library until they reveal a creature. If they do, that player puts that card on the battlefield, and all other cards revealed this way into their graveyard. Graham.
If you think this is clunky,
The old wording?
yeah, don't
Oh,
forget.
it's horrible.
I legitimately have never been able to figure out what this card does. Please explain to me
The original
what
wording.
this card does.
So, do you want to do it?
sure, yeah. If you have this in play in your upkeep, in a 1v1 game, if your opponent has more creatures than you, you reveal cards from the top of your deck until you hit a creature, put that creature into play, you put the rest of them in the bin.
Yeah, that's it.
So you play this with Emrakul and you get them.
Yeah.
Or Gristlebranch, or Academy
Blazing
Rector.
Archon. There's a bunch of different ways you can...
We're
you
sort
can
of past the Blazing Archon
Yeah.
days.
It's a little
Oh.
bit like a Reanimator deck, except that it's different.
It's typically played in more of a controller combo.
Yeah.
Means you're either trying to control the game and then eventually find one of your huge spells, or Oath or a Planeswalker or something to win the game with, or you can combo and go like more all in on finding Oath. I'm also one of the more prolific Oath of Druids players in the format, having done pretty well with several different versions. The coolest one I played was when I would Oath into Academy Rector and hopefully bin Cabal Therapy, and then I could sack my Academy Rector to Cabal Therapy to get some powerful enchantment. I played Animate Dead to get, if I had another creature they dealt with.
Just get him.
Or Omniscience.
I wonder, is there a universe where you play Oath of Druids and Madcap Experiment in the same deck?
Sure.
Yep.
Especially
Yeah.
now that it's 0.
Yeah.
That's a scary.
This was definitely the most controversial change, I think. This one also, Jer voted against this one. I voted for this one.
Yep.
On
Now you must fight.
well, so on any of the changes we're talking about today, I was the swing vote on every single change. Actually,
Ooh,
there were
tight.
2 people who voted the same on everything, and then 2 people voted close to the same. There were some changes that were 4-1, but Jared and another person were the against on all the cards that had 2 opposers, and yeah, I was the swing vote on all of them. So
It was kind of interesting. The 2 people who are maybe viewed as the most prolific combo players voted against a lot of the combo changes.
You're like, you don't understand.
Liam's also a pretty prolific combo player.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It's like, you don't know it like I know it. I'm going to kill you with this
and then
card. Don't give it
then
to
the
me.
2 players who are known for playing like more fair decks, like they do play a variety, but they voted to lower a bunch of combo cards. So it was kind of an interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, combo is just
meeting.
not really being in the format that much.
And that was the
recently,
impetus
has it?
behind a bunch of these changes.
Yes.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
I understand a lot of people thinking combo isn't fun because you're like having this potentially interactive game of Magic back and forth, and you're just like, oops, you lose. But on the other hand, there is something refreshing about a game ending as opposed to playing, I'm going to bring it up again, Blue Moon. Because the problem with playing against Blue Moon is he actually lost 15 turns ago. It's just taken them 2.5 years to actually finally kill you.
And here's Serge Yager on his weekly soapbox.
I'm sad Madcap Experiments didn't get pointed at.
Serge, don't you play Prison?
Serge, how many people have you strip mine blocked? How many? This is for them, Serge.
I believe I've played some games against you where you've perhaps beat me 20 turns into the past, but I was like, do you have a way to win? And you're like, I don't know.
Not yet.
Maybe. I
Ultimately,
might find the one way to win in my deck.
This is actually something that I grappled with for a long time because, early on in my Magic playing career, I really hated combo and I really hated blue.
Yep.
And I still have issues with like both of those colors, but both of those like archetypes. But the thing is, like, in this game, Magic, what one person finds fun, another person may not find fun. Like, there's different ways people enjoy this game and different ways of playing the game that each person enjoys. I think where the problem arises is when those ways of playing directly conflict. They're just like, I have fun by taking away your fun, but there's means built into the game for you to like resist that, to
Like the points list.
like the points list, to work with it. And it's just like, I hate using this argument because it like really sounds dismissive, but it's like it's just part of the game. These cards exist in the game of Magic, and
to build upon that, you actually need combo and control for a healthy metagame.
Yeah,
I agree with
that's
that.
the impetus behind a bunch of these changes.
When you're balancing, especially in Eternal format, it's really hard, and you want as you mentioned, different people like doing different things. So you want to be able to include everybody into your Eternal format.
Make their favorite deck viable.
Well,
and you want the combo player to be able to play combo and not feel like, man, if I play combo, I have no chance of winning.
Well, also what you were bringing up with a healthy meta, like there is kind of this rock, paper, scissors relationship
Exactly.
with deck archetypes, between stuff like aggro, mid-range,
Combo control.
Like, it's almost like an ecosystem where one eats the next, and if you take one out,
It is.
then one becomes the best archetype.
Yeah, like rock, paper, scissors without rock. It's just like
imagine
scissors
you
always
play,
wins.
it's just like, if you play rock, paper, scissors, and you cut rock,
Yeah,
it's
it's
just like, oh, what am I playing today? Paper?
It's like rock, paper, scissors, where rock loses to scissors half the time.
Yeah, that is actually a better description of what
yeah.
the situation is right now.
Yeah.
It's not the combo is actually unplayable, but basically the combo decks are not beating the decks they should beat a lot of the time, which is problematic.
So to bring it back to Oath of Druids, I'm happy this comes in. I think it does well against... so Oath always has this tricky spot of you want your opponents to have creatures so that your Oath of Druids triggers and you get your bigger creature, but you don't want them to have so many creatures that it kills you. So you've got these tricky matchups, like Jer was saying. You put it in sort of a controlled shell to try and shape how many creatures they have, and you also play these weird effects that occasionally gift them creatures. Bruh.
We found the deck for Dowsing Dagger.
Oh
No.
It's awful.
You have to put it on a
attack with
creature.
it. Yeah,
No.
you put it on your Emrakul.
I see
It's
we're
not good.
ramping after we have an Emrakul in play.
Don't
All
do
right.
it.
I did
You've
it,
done it
Serge.
again, Alex.
I did it.
You broke the metal wide open.
But yeah, so
Forbidden Orchard is the
Yeah.
most
the real enabler.
yeah, it's a land, so it's pretty free to put in your deck.
It makes every color of mana. It's like actively very
Yeah,
good.
and it gives them colorless 1/1s with a mostly not relevant creature type in Highlander.
What if they play that sick
free
Kamigawa
spirits.
block stuff? Any other thoughts on Oath before we move on? We
let's
derailed a
move on.
little bit there.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine. So this is a big change. We reduced Sol Ring from 4 to 3.
That's
And I think this is kind of exciting. So Sol Ring is a pretty classic artifact in EDH and banned everywhere else for good reason. 1 mana, put an artifact into play, tap, add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. It's an auto include in every pre-constructed commander deck.
it's Mox number 6.
Yeah, and notably, actually, in Highlander on the points right now, Moxen are 3 points. So Sol Ring has been reduced to be in line with Moxen, and that's kind
So
of
now it really is Mox number 6.
Yeah, so I was the main proponent behind this change, and I'll explain why.
Sure.
So recently, 3-color blue mid-range decks have been doing really well, and aggro decks have been doing really well.
Yep.
And these are all decks that play either mostly blue-pointed cards or Moxes as
Yeah.
points. And the decks have been struggling a little bit, have been 2-color mid-range decks. I'm not counting Blue Moon, because Blue Moon doesn't effectively use Sol Ring that well. They're pretty in on their,
blue.
Well, they
their
can't-
blue
yeah.
cards, I
Can't play
think.
Sol Ring.
well,
And it's an artifact, so
yeah, Madcap Experiment
yeah.
combo.
And so 2-color control decks and academy decks really benefit from this change, and those decks aren't in the best place right now. So I think lowering Sol Ring is a pretty it's safer than it looks, just
Yeah,
because of
way
the decks
safer.
that really benefit from it.
Yeah, aren't the aggro decks? 'Cause a lot of aggro decks have color-intensive early costs, so like red, or like double colors.
And same with the triple color decks. Like if you look
Yeah.
at the Jeskai threats, they're playing cards like Mantis Rider. They're playing cards like Lightning Angel.
Yeah.
so
They're playing cards like True Name Nemesis, Vendilion Clique, and Sol Ring doesn't really help you cast those cards very effectively.
I actually like this change a lot. This is, I think, like that surgical precision of like, what can we do to help the decks that are struggling? And a
no.
mid-range deck wants to get like green, and 2 to cast a 4-mana Planeswalker a couple turns earlier. What's up, Alex?
You just made Allison put
Mind Twist
Mind
back
Twist
in the deck.
back in her deck.
Oh!
She told me about that. Oh no! No, that's a good thing. There need to be more Mind Twists
Yeah.
in the metagame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, because
that's-
Allison's points, she plays the rock, and
always played the rock.
played the rock, and finally settled on her points list being Sol Ring, Black Mox, Green Mox.
Yeah.
It's very simple, but now there's room for Mind Twist.
This
And
card's
that deck
great.
plays a lot of mana, so this is
So
gonna.
just to really quickly to introduce Mind Twist. Mind Twist is X and black. Target player discards X cards at random. This card is brutal.
It's backbreaking.
And so one of the matchups the Rock traditionally struggles with is uninteractive combo decks. They play a few hand attack spells, but not really enough for it to matter too much. And so just getting another hand attack spell for them to have more outs against combos is just a great
another relevant
thing.
card. This card's also really good to play in the mid-range mirrors.
Yep.
One of the things that 2-color aggro
Definitely.
decks were struggling against was the 3-color blue-based mid-range decks that had a lot of good threats, a lot of good removal, and they were often playing a blue piece of power to go over the top.
Well, it also gets so much card advantage over time.
Well,
with those
that's
blue.
exactly
yeah.
it, right? Like these blue mid-range decks go like tap out for Mantis Rider, and then your like green-black mid-range deck or your black X mid-range deck goes like Mind Twist you for 4, and you get their whole hand, and then they die, right? it puts another tax on
Sure.
them. So lowering Sol Ring, I think, does have the sort of side effect of bringing Mind Twist more into the metagame, and I like that a lot actually.
All right, let's move on. Next up, we have Time Walk from 6 to 5. Time Walk is a 2-mana sorcery that just reads, take another turn after this one. And personally, I don't like this change. I kind of hate the Time Walk decks. I hate the type of decks that take advantage of this. These sort of like tempo, attrition, like I'm gonna play a werebear on turn 4 and then counter every spell and then just slowly beat you to death sort of
He's
decks.
a nice guy, though.
Robin, I like Robin. I don't like the archetype he's left behind.
I just don't think that archetype is in a great spot right now. Like
I've not seen
blue
that.
green hasn't won a tournament in
Years.
a year and a half probably.
Wow.
And like the threats are so good and so fast that just like planning to counter everything they do before turn 4 and then playing a 2-drop and holding up another counterspell just isn't a viable strategy anymore. You're going to die to aggressive creatures. You're going to die to people playing a 1-drop and a 2-drop on turn 3. You can't counter both. You're going to die to people playing 2-2-drops on turn 4. Once again, you can't counter both.
So what was the hope in reducing Time Walk?
So
what deck are we trying to help here?
The reason we reduced Time Walk is because of its current parity with Ancestral Recall and the dominance in winning lists playing Ancestral Recall. I've said this for a while and actually was against raising Time Walk to begin with, and I was the one who got them separated when we switched to the 10-point system. Just because Ancestral Recall is so in the points list, Ancestral Recall and Time Walk for a long time have always
been the
had
same,
had the same points value. They're the two blue pieces of power apart from Time Twister, but Time Twister's clearly different. Yeah, so they're very easily equatable. But Time Walk has very high upside, but its fail case is not that good. It's often compared to Explore.
I love it, yeah.
And its fail
Sometimes
case.
Time Walk is just Explore.
Oh,
Draw an
rampant
extra
growth.
card, play an
Oh,
extra
yeah.
land. Like
When you just cast
what
it,
it
you
is.
cast it on turn 2
But-
to play the land. I love it.
But every time you cast Ancestral Recall, you're gaining massive advantage.
Yeah.
And so the players who are playing blue and having to choose between Time Walk and Ancestral Recall were
Well, they pick Recall
Always
every
picking
time.
Recall.
going
yeah.
to pick Recall, and it showed up in the data of winning decks is that Recall's won more than twice as many tournaments.
I guess, I mean, I'm
Time Walk.
fine
You
with
can also Merchant Scroll for Recall. You can't Merchant Scroll for Time Walk.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm fine to see less recall in the meta, but that's interesting. Okay, I'll see how this one plays out.
Time Walk's also harder to set up. Like Time Walk's good when you have a big board and can attack twice to win the game, or you're like podding, and you if you take an extra turn for 2 mana, that lets you untap all your stuff and
Yeah. That was
pod
honestly
to win
the
the
reason
game.
that I wanted it up, was I thought that deck was too good with Time Walk.
And so the reason we said earlier we combined it with Eldritch Evolution was largely with the Rug Pod deck in mind. In that before, when it had Eldritch Evolution and Time Walk and Birthing Pod and Survival of the Fittest,
Right,
it was
yeah.
just too consistent, and Time Walk and Eldritch Evolution gave it too many tools to win the game. 'Cause
Yeah.
this deck can actually set up infinite turns with Kiki Jiki, Eternal Witness, and Time Walk.
Yeah.
So it just gave it another way to
Yeah.
just win the game.
It made Brindlelight this insane split card, which read like either Time Warp or Tutor for 1 creature, or it was so nuts.
What's Bring to Light?
Brindlelight is
Oh,
3 blue-green. It has Converge.
Maybe this is the best card you're not playing.
No, everyone plays this card. It's great. And so you get to search your library for a card with converted mana
Oh, it's
cost equal
creature,
to...
instant, or sorcery.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a creature and sorcery with converted mana cost equal to or less than the number of colors you use to cast the spell. So if you cast it for 4, you can get a lot of really powerful things. Most notably, it's Time Walk and Eldritch Evolution were the cards that they were getting. So yeah, these two changes were paired when we proposed Time Walk down. I think I was the one who said this. That I said I would not vote for Time Walk down without some kind of tax being put on.
Yeah.
We'll get to Eldritch Evolution after on that one.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually voted on them as
As
a
a
block.
pair. They
Or
were
maybe we should talk about them right now then.
because
Yeah.
they were voted on as a pair. Like, they aren't two separate changes. They are.
Sure. So
a
we
change
mentioned
that
this
are
a lot. So
together.
Eldritch Evolution is a 3-mana sorcery that we've talked about like 6 times this episode. It's a
Yeah.
powerful card. So 1 green for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast it, you must sacrifice a creature. Search your library for a creature card with CMC X or less, where X is 2 plus the sacrifice creature's CMC. Put that creature directly onto the battlefield and then search your library. Notably, shuffle your library, and then notably exile Eldritch Evolution. So you
I
can't.
always forget that clause.
Well, so you can't like E-Witness, get it back,
Yeah.
and then just like
That'd be pretty
pod
busted.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't cycle it. But yeah. So this card's insane, and it was really, really good, and specifically that pod deck because cheating your way up to Kiki Jiki in particular.
Well, any
Yeah.
3-drop into
The fact that it's not like many of these tutors in the past have been color restricted to green.
Like
but
Green Sun Zenith.
Yeah, but the fact that this gets
Any
color creature and
Yeah,
X plus 2, it's so and right onto the battlefield. It's just like
Yeah, it's
Well, it's like compared to something like Green Sun Zenith,
Yeah.
which only gets green creatures, or even like
Court of Calling.
Yeah.
Well, Cord
It's
gets
just-
anything, but it's
Cord
way
gets
more
anything.
expensive.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the thing. It's like
Well,
just
it's triple green.
so much more expensive.
Yeah.
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 But so we paired these changes together, and this is an instance, actually, Grant, where your question comes up, which is, I mean, Time Walk went up 3 months ago, and now it's coming back down. And that's a reflection of the fact that, as Jeremy said, this is such a classic problem, too, with Time Walk and Recall, which is that when they're the same points, everyone plays Recall. But then when they're different points, it's often just better to be playing Time Walk. It's not always better, and
Sure.
this is the debate we have in the council, and we won't have this debate now because Jared and I have talked about this for hours before. But that's the argument we have.
Sure. So let's move on. The next card we have on the list is Time Vault. Time Vault is a 2 mana artifact. It comes into play tapped. It doesn't untap on your untap step. However, at the beginning of your turn, if it's tapped, you can skip your turn to untap it, and then finally tap, take an extra turn. So this card is normally played with,
Voltaic Key.
thank you, Voltaic Key, which is a 1 mana
Pestermite.
artifact. Which just says, Pestermite, but sorry, Voltaic Key is the classic
don't
pairing,
worry, that's the real
which is a 1 mana artifact. It just says tap,
not
untap,
actually.
target artifact. And then what happens with Voltaic Key, sorry, pay 1 and tap it. What happens with Voltaic Key and Time Walk is you just tap and untap them over and over and over and take infinite turns.
Basically, when they printed this card, they didn't think that there was going to be any way to untap something.
Well, and also the way that Time Vault works has changed a bunch of times.
Yeah.
From working with Voltaic Key to not working with Voltaic Key
Oh,
to
really?
working with it again. Yeah. The rules around the card have changed.
Did they
before.
ever errata it that it's like you can't untap this without actually having paid for it properly?
I forget exactly what the errata was, but there was a time where it didn't work.
But it's basically you can sort of like it's quite trivial to get around this. There's many untap effects that untap Time Vault,
Yeah.
and then if you have one that you can use more than once, you win the game because you just take infinite turns.
So with this going to 6, the big thing that we thought about, and the big question is it too good to have Time Vault and Demonic Tutor be playable in the same deck again?
Well, going back, so Time Vault was 7 points
7
out of
points.
10. I mean, that's one of the most expensive
It
pointed
was
cards.
on par with Lotus.
Yeah,
Same
and
cost
it's like
as Lotus.
one of the most expensive cards in the format because it's so powerful and it's so uninteractive when it's going. It's so lowering
and it's
it.
cheap. It's like one of the cheapest instant I win the game cards.
Yeah.
Lots of the other I win the game cards take longer to set up, and it's also colorless, so like you can cheat on mana. It's playable with Mishra's Workshop, Ancient Tomb, City of Traders, so like there's ways to turbo out the Time Vault combo super fast.
So it's interesting that this has been lowered, and I'm curious as to why.
Basically, Garrett, who's definitely the person who's played the most Time Vault, not
Sure.
close,
Yep.
said, if you're going to play a Time Vault deck right now, it is wrong to play it, and you should just play an Ancestral Recall deck and get an extra point and take all the bad Time Vault cards out of your deck and play that deck. Just play the same deck as a value deck with a couple more blue spells in it instead.
And so
he said
to-
it's never right to play Time Vault right now, is what he felt.
He didn't say
Not
never, but
he just like, yeah, he was,
understand.
it's like if your goal is to win the tournament, you're probably
yeah.
have better odds to play Ancestral Recall instead. And the reason being is that the Time Vault decks are typically combo control style decks. They'll play some counter spells, some disruption in removal, maybe some black discard spells, and then they'll play a few of the better, more expensive tutors like Dark Petition. They'll typically play transmute spells because a bunch of the transmute spells for 2 are pretty good, like Muddle the Mixture that we brought up earlier.
Yep.
And so they'll try to winning the game often in one turn. They'll like try to draw a Voltaic Key at some point with like a Trinket Mage, and then a couple turns later they'll transmute for Time Vault, then not even play anything, then on the next turn just like play Time Vault, play Voltaic Key, untap Time Vault with counterspell backup the whole time and try to win.
Yeah. The deck is powerful. And when we changed, this got affected, I should say, in the 7-point system when Demonic Tutor got changed. Demonic Tutor got changed and made it so that you could no longer play Time Vault and Demonic Tutor in the same deck. And then when we transitioned from 7 to 10, that change stayed. You still weren't able to play both of them in the same deck. And as a result, more or less since then, like Time Vault has been in and out of playability, but the big issue has been the complementary 3 points of what you play with Time Vault
Sure.
have never really felt powerful enough. And Demonic Tutor is good, is the nice pairing because it's really versatile. It finds Time Vault. You can also find it with all the Transmute 2s that you're going to play anyway. And it also finds typically these Time Vault decks play a bunch of other combos as well.
Yeah, the last time I remember a Time Vault deck winning, it was in a Grixis combo deck that was also playing Pestermite Kiki-Jiki combo, because Pestermite notably untaps, can also untap, doesn't just tap stuff, so it untaps your Time Vault, you take another turn.
Yeah.
And so you can either get the value off of the untap clause from your Kiki-Jiki combo and just win with that, or win with the Time Vault. So that was kind of neat, but I think that was you, and that was like 2 years ago?
Yeah, and
I won with that deck also when I last
and
lived here.
Liam won with it. Garrett, I think Garrett's won with it. Ben won with it last year. So it's like been putting up
Close.
results now and again, but it's felt pretty underwhelming recently. And I agree with what Garrett said. He's one of the other counselors in that your deck is likely stronger as an Ancestral Recall deck. Plus, you get another one-pointed card than trying to jam all these sort of goofy Time Vault cards in your deck, because you do play some cards that don't really do a whole lot without Time Vault. Like you're playing Planeswalkers like Ralzeric,
Yeah.
Captain of the Mists.
Captain of the Mist. You're playing Tezzeret the Seeker, which are like fine cards, but you get to upgrade for sure if you don't have Time Vault in your
Do
deck.
you know what I lost to on Time Vault one time? Daravi Imperial Tactician.
Yeah,
Sorry, is that the Bant card?
yeah, that's the band commander.
Yeah, that's the Garrett special.
Yeah. So
I just looked at this, I was like, I ain't even mad.
I'm going to introduce this. So this is a 2/3 wizard, bird wizard for Bant. It has flying. Whenever it enters the battlefield, or a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may tap or untap target permanent, and for 1 and Bant,
Yeah, who cares?
put it onto the battlefield from the command zone. It's notable that it's there. So yeah,
So he played this into Time Vault, and I was like,
You're
Bird
like, okay.
Wizard? I'm dead!
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's, there's so many ways to untap Time Vault now, it's ridiculous.
And so I'll move on to the last points change we have, because I feel it's relevant with Time Vault, because is where my brain went, and that's Tinker. Tinker going from 5 points down to 4. So Tinker is a 3-mana sorcery, also has an additional cost that you must sacrifice an artifact, and then search your library for any artifact spell, and just put it into play. Shelf your library afterwards.
You can find Time Vault with this.
The fact that Time Vault is 6 and Tinker is 4, that means you can put both of these cards in the same deck together, which is...
First time in a really long time that's been true.
I imagine that was deliberate.
We weren't actually that worried about it, because most of the Time Vault decks that have been successful haven't actually played very many artifacts. They've played 5, maybe 6 artifacts. You play maybe Sensei's Divining Top, maybe Vidalcan Shackles, and then you typically see Voltaic Key, Time Vault, Painter Servant, and Grindstone.
Sure.
I wonder if
And so-
Academy decks start playing Time Vault now.
You don't regularly have enough artifacts in play to make Tinker good enough, because you don't usually, to make Tinker good, you want one piece of your 2-card combo in play and another artifact, and then you can Tinker for the other piece of your combo.
Academy is the archetype that plays this the most.
That wants
In fact,
Tinker,
maybe
yeah.
the only one.
But
The
Academy needs more artifacts than Academy, which are all pointed, so you can't really get the critical mass of
You
artifacts for
actually stop
Academy.
being able to play Academy if you play Time Vault in
Yeah.
the same deck. Which is maybe worth it, right? Like, but we're willing to let people try that. If people discover that there's some artifact deck that's very good with all of the artifact tutors plus Tinker and Time Vault, great. You know, that's a new archetype that's going to become interesting.
Yeah, Liam just blew my mind. Academy with no Academy.
Yeah.
No Academy. There we go. You heard it here first, folk.
Yeah.
Hey, Serge, which Academy are you talking about?
Oh, Tolarian Academy.
Yeah.
So sorry, we should introduce that card. This is a legendary land, and it just says tap, add blue to your mana pool equal to the number of artifacts you control.
That's a lot of blue.
Yeah, this is a pointed card, and this is another build-around card. So you see it, you call it an Academy deck because it's sort of the heart of the deck. You put a ludicrous amount of artifacts in, you replace your basic lands with artifact lands, you start playing a lot of like cheap, potentially even off-color mana rocks at 2, like the Signets, just to try and get as much mana off Academy as possible, and then you just cast like Tron payload cards, like the
Ugin, Karn.
Karn,
yeah, you got
stuff
it.
like that.
So you imagine it'd be a good fit to have an Academy deck with Tinker and Time Vault, but luckily the point system is there to be like, no, you are too greedy.
Just to go back to Tinker for a second,
Sure,
I
yeah.
wanted to compare it to another card on the points list,
Yeah, this
which
is an
is
important comparison.
Natural Order.
Yeah.
Natural Order is also is still 5 points.
Okay.
And Tinker and Natural Order have been sort of
Paired.
likened for a long time and kept at point parity, like Ancestral Recall and Time Walk.
So what's Natural Order?
Natural Order is 2 and 2 green sorcery. As an additional cost to cast Natural Order, sacrifice a green creature.
Yeah.
Search your library for a green creature card and put it onto the battlefield. Then shuffle your library.
Almost always finds Hoof.
Or Primeval Titan.
Yeah.
And so getting Hoof or Primeval Titan typically either wins you the game that turn or sets up a win for next turn.
Yeah.
Or puts the game state at an early enough turn into such a state that you're like very unlikely to lose.
Yeah.
And it just became the case that Tinker wasn't able to do the same things. Like you can Tinker for Blightsteel early, that sets up a quick win, but there's actually printing more and more ways to get rid of Blightsteel, bounce spells.
You can just block it.
So Blightsteel
It
Colossus.
has trample, so it's hard.
Yeah.
But
But you can block
you
it
can
for a
live
couple
for
years.
it.
Yeah.
turn.
So Blightsteel
You can buy
Colossus
time.
notably is an 11 mana artifact.
yeah.
A 12 mana artifact. It's an 11/11 with trample and infect, notably. So normally, if you don't have anything to block it, it just swings and kills you,
Yeah, and so the reason
and it's indestructible.
we wanted to lower Tinker is because the cost on tinkering into Blightsteel was super high. It's like, sure, there's a chance you win the game next turn, but if your opponent answers this, you probably just lose.
Yeah, you've invested
and
a
it's-
lot of cards.
And it being indestructible actually doesn't make it that unanswerable.
No.
There's a lot of bounce spells in the format. There's a lot of exile removal.
Yeah.
They
just keep printing better O-rings.
They could play Maze of Ith, like then you just get brickwalled. Like Maze of Ith is actually not even that good against Primeval Titan.
No.
Like you still
Just
get the
keep
trigger
getting
every
lands.
time.
Yeah.
You're
It's
you're like
I'll just
super
get
happy.
a bunch of critter lands and then overwhelm you.
Yeah, and so you maybe have to go get like Inkwell Leviathan, which is a
Yeah.
8/9 mana. I think it's 7 blue for a 7/11 Island Walk Shroud Trample.
Oh, the Inkwell Leviathan. These
to
are
get around the hate, but then you're not winning for 3 turns if
Sometimes
it
longer
connects.
even,
yeah. These are the classic sort of Tinker payloads if you're not getting a combo
Or,
piece.
or against control, sometimes you'll get like Staff of Nin, so you're just drawing a bunch of extra cards.
What's the Sphinx you play against the red-green decks? That's the other Tinker
This
payload.
is the one reason I think Tinker could have still been 5. You get Sphinx of the Steel Wind,
That
which
card
is
is oppressive.
5 and Esper. It has protection from red and green, and it is a 6/6 flying first strike vigilance lifelink.
That's a lot of keywords.
And so any base red or green deck without any of the Esper colors virtually can't beat this card.
Yeah, that part feels bad. If you try and play a fair deck and you encounter the Tinker deck and they get this out on turn 3 or 4, it's basically GG.
Or turn
only
1.
if you're red and green a lot. Like,
All the Esper colors have a lot of good answers
yeah,
for this.
this still falls into a lot of the same problems as the Blightsteel Colossus. It's just it's slightly
Against,
better
like-
against an archetype.
Even against a green-white deck. Like, if they have any of their white removal spells, they'll kill
Sure.
this thing.
Yeah, okay. Any other feelings just on the points list or points changes at all? I'm excited. I think seeing how combo enters the metagame will be interesting and kind of refreshing. Maybe it'll hate out Blue Moon.
I mean, yeah, that would be nice. I mean, I'm sitting here with this like Orzhov Hate Bears deck that I built, and I was like, combo, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone on Monday who like had brought they were just new to the Highlander and they've built this like bug tempo deck, and they're like, yeah, like none of the points changes really affect my deck, and I was like, no,
They do.
your deck
Yeah.
got much better with
Yeah.
these points changes.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be all these people jamming combo cards, and your deck is great against those decks.
So
You were going to say something, Greg? Oh,
Yeah.
Lean forward towards your mic.
So it's worth mentioning to those of you who are going to be playing soon, these points changes go into effect on Monday.
Yes.
That's if your local community is following what we do in Victoria, which is kind of exciting.
Monday, October 23rd.
Officially.
Notable,
yeah.
right, depending on what day this episode goes up. That's it for our episode. So let's go to our closing segment, Powerful Magic. We have a new effect for this.
Oh, it's been here for like
he's
a week or
loading
two.
Yeah.
And up to date.
I didn't tell James about the effect, so I don't know if he did it last time.
I
Scott
don't-
did it in, I think.
Oh, nice.
all right.
All right, Liam, tell us a story of some powerful magic.
Well, it's funny we've been talking about like combo, and then towards the end of that conversation, we were talking about Garrett.
Yes, I love this story.
Do you know? Okay, I don't know the story.
Oh, this story's not good for me. See, last week we told a story about getting there, so this week we're back on the downswing.
Back getting goozled.
So I'll set the scene. Garrett's basically brand new to Highlander. He's been like playing Magic for a little while.
Oh, this is going way back in time.
Yeah, this is like years ago.
This is from beginner to council member Garrett.
Yeah, well, and I'm also reasonably new to Highlander at the time. So both of us are playing like kind of interesting decks. We're probably in the O2 bracket. I don't actually remember. We were definitely sitting in the back of YJ, which means we did not have a lot of match wins. And so Garrett's playing Esper Academy Control.
Love it.
Kind of cool deck, yeah. Like he's trying to leverage Academy to do semi-unfair things, but he's mostly doing fair things with it. I am playing Rug combos.
Okay.
So this was the old Stronghold Gambit deck.
Sorry, what
Sorry, the what deck?
Yeah, so this is 1 in a red for a sorcery that says each player reveals a creature card from their hand. The person who reveals the lower converted mana cost creature gets to put it into play.
What's the shenanigans with this?
Is that right? Did I get that right, by the way?
Yeah.
That's right.
Great. The shenanigans with this
And if they tie, they both go into play.
Yeah, so the shenanigans with this is you hope they don't have a creature and you put an Emrakul in play.
What?
Yeah. It's just like cross
Risky show
Look,
and tell.
I was new to Highlander, okay? So we were also playing like show and tell, sneak attack, channel.
Hopefully you're playing hand attack to see if they have a creature to set this up.
I was Rug.
Yeah.
I had Gitaxian Probe. I would know whether I was going to be doing the wrong thing.
Okay.
So it's this kind of deck. We're trying to cheat stuff into play. And I sort of figured like, well, since I'm playing this channel card, makes perfect sense to play Banefire as well. Because channel Banefire, OG combo, get people pretty easily. So Garrett and I are in game 3. We've played 2 like pretty interesting games. And in game 3, Garrett stumbles on mana. He doesn't have a whole lot of plays, and I'm just kind of rolling. I'm doing my thing, cast a couple tutors, cast some draw spells, that sort of thing. And finally, I'm sitting there. He has no lands untapped, and I'm kind of like, well, he's just played this mana rock, which he desperately needs for land. So surely he doesn't have much. It was sort of metagamey, but I knew he didn't own a Force of Will. That's just a piece of information I had access to because we had talked.
Sure.
And so I'm looking at my hand, and I have Channel, and I have Banefire, and I have Worldly Tutor. So the safe thing to do is to Worldly Tutor for Emrakul and kill him with Channel Emrakul next turn. But I don't do that. So instead I cast...
I know where this is going.
So I cast Channel. I channel for most of my life. I cast Banefire, targeting him.
What's Channel?
Channel is green for a sorcery. I think it's a sorcery. It might be an instant.
It's a sorcery.
It's a sorcery, good. Which says, until end of turn, you can pay a life to get a mana.
Yep.
So the combo with Banefire, which is Fireball, but if you cast it for more than 5, it's uncounterable.
I think I see where the story's going.
You channel your way up to enough mana to kill them, and then you cast Banefire, and they can't counter the spell, so how are they going to win, right?
Yep.
They're dead. So I cast Channel, and I'm like, all right, well, he's dead. He didn't counter this Channel. He might have had days, but he doesn't. So I channel out this Banefire, and I Banefire him for 17, and I'm at 2, and he's at 17. And then Garrett thinks for a second, and then he's like, oh, it dawns on him. He's he looks at Banefire, reads the card. He doesn't actually call a judge over to check whether this works because either he's dead or it doesn't. And then he's just Misdirection or Banefire.
He doesn't have a Force of Will, but he has the other 5 mana blue cast for free.
Yeah, so Misdirection is 3 blue. Change the target as the single target of a spell with another single target instead. You can cast it for pitching a blue card.
Notably, you can cast it when you're tapped out.
Which is in fact what happened. So then I died. I went to negative 15 or 16 life or whatever it was.
Wow.
And this is another one of these classic stories, like the one that Jeremy told, where I could have played around this. There was an answer. I could have just cast the Worldly Tutor and Emrakul him next turn.
I'm so glad you told this story because it reminded me of a time I was on the other end of this equation.
Where you misdirected the Banefire?
It was worse than that. I was borrowing somebody's deck.
My deck.
And it was your deck?
Yep, I remember the story.
They flip over Bonfire of the Damned.
Yep.
And I was like, ooh, that's bad. And then I pick up Bonfire. I was like, target player. Oh, okay.
So Bonfire of the Damned, notably XX red sorcery deals X damage to target player and each creature he or she controls. Or for Miracle, it's a single X in red. This is a very, very swingy card. So you're looking down at this thing.
You get it on, you flip it off the top, and then you get to cast it for cheap. And so they cast it for some arbitrary amount of mana that was going to like blow up my board and nug me really hard. And I was just like, oh, it targets the player. Misdirection, target you.
Yeah.
And they're just like, da-da-da-da-da.
I just remember hearing from across the room Alex being like, "Does this work?" And he's just like, "Bear, bear, 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 bear."
Misdirection's this weird card where when it works so well.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time it's just like stuck in your hand.
Just stuck in your hand,
Like,
being like, "Tack anything, please."
doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But those those couple times when you swerve something and it's just.
Yeah, you ever misdirected someone's spell onto their own hexproof creature?
Wait, what?
It's
Yeah.
the best way to kill a Trunium Nemesis.
Yep.
Or a Thrun. I had someone try and path my creature and I misdirected it onto their Thrun.
Yep,
Right,
that
'cause
feels good.
It's still a valid target.
I
for
always
them.
want to misdirect an ancestral, but I haven't quite lived that dream yet.
That's not even that good. You're up a card.
Yeah, but they're
It
down
says it's a
3.
2-2.
They're down 3.
No,
Well,
they're
they're
down
not.
1.
They're down 1.
Well, they're not drawing the 3, so it's
Sure,
like 4.
but that's a trap.
Okay, suppose
You're
if this
trapped.
was like counter their ancestral draw card.
Yeah, that would be just as good. Disrupt, which, by the way, I heard happened. Someone
Yeah.
had their ancestral recall get disrupted, which
That's
is
gotta feel bad.
single blue, 4 spike an instant or sorcery draw card.
Yeah, Disrupt is pretty spicy. That's like counterspell number 18 in the tempo deck. If you're like
Yeah.
It's like counterspell number 27.
Yeah.
I have a comprehensive list. I'll release it sometime.
All right. Anyways, that is our episode for today. That is the points changes. So again, down in the comments below, if you're curious about the points list, check out the website, check out the Facebook group. We've got counselors. We're going to always be updating. This is a living format, which is kind of neat. So the points list
Definitely.
changes, and we're trying to get to a metagame that we enjoy playing in, that's healthy, that lets you play the deck you
The
want to play.
shakeup is going to be interesting because I imagine there's going to be more combo decks and also decks that prey on combo decks.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. Let's see what happens.
the point.
I'm excited for all the changes. As always, this episode is brought to you by you over at the Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. So thank you for support. Thank you to the fellow North 100 co-hosts, and thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day.
Bye.